Good evening, everyone. And I hope everyone's having a good evening. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. Tonight, we will be covering a report from how I affectionately call him Dougie Fresh, known as Doug Price. And he's going to be our man on the scene at the youth-led LGBTQ rally that happened this morning to oppose Senate Bill 150, as well as a recap of our caravan for compassion and other ways that you can engage to stop this hateful legislation in the final moments of this session. And also, we may be covering just a few things that our beloved governor Andy Beshear has vetoed within the week. So, also, as always, we'll close with a critical call to action. Tonight, Aaron Viles, our host, is traveling right now, and my name is Kimberly Cecil Jones, and I will be your fill-in tonight for Mr. Viles. But first, you know how we do this thing. Are you ready to turn Kentucky purple? Yes, Kentucky purple means that it's red right now, but if we can get more blue in this state, it will turn purple. So, right now, with the supermajorities in both the Senate and the State House of Representatives, the General Assembly is primarily focused on doing every little thing the coal industry could ever imagine and winning the culture wars, definitely by driving out the LGBTQ plus community. Now, if you want a commonwealth that works for all of us, and I mean all of us, no matter where you live, what pocket of the state, join Progress Kentucky. Join us and support our campaign to turn our commonwealth purple. Make a donation at our Secure Act Blue account and spread the word that we're tired of the GOP ignoring the basic needs of regular folks in Kentucky. And we think that our commonwealth, yes, we do, is worth fighting for. And I know that you do too. So now it's time to check in with our co-host and let us know who and where you are and what does your protest sign say today. Oh, yeah, you. I'm talking to you. Why don't you get on the internet right now, and we mean you, to put in what your protest sign says today, because we want to read it and maybe share some of your virtual protest signs live, okay? Mr. Dougie Fresh is going to come after me, and then we have the great Mr. Willie Carver, who I affectionately call him also LL Cool C. What does that stand for? LL Cool Willie Carver. So first of all, as I told you before, I'm Kimberly Cecil Jones. I'm right here in Louisville, Kentucky, home of the Kentucky Derby. And yes, Derby is coming up. And my protest sign says today, I pay your salary. I am your employer. Remember that. How about you, Dougie Fresh? You're there in Harrison County. What does yours say today?
That's a great sign. I really like that. Coming to you from Harrison County, Kentucky, and I have a real sign that I picked up today at the teen rally. This was a good one. Hope you can read that.
Gender affirming care for minors does not include genital surgeries. Stop Senate Bill 150. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
I am
Really?
with you on that. And Harrison County is famous not only for Dougie Fresh, Mr. Price there, but is famous for a lot more than that. Now, next, we're going to have Willie Carver, a former Kentucky Teacher of the Year. Also got an opportunity and a phone call to come to the White House to renew vows. Am I correct on that? Mr. LL Cool C?
To do all kinds of stuff. Why did I not go for Missy Misdemeanor Carver? There's 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 the real question. You know what? What I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take my sign and turn it around, because what is the point in pointing at the men inside who did this today? Because those kids could have been on fire, literally, and they would not have turned to help them. So I'm going to turn around and just face those kids instead and say, cry if you need to, mourn if you need to, um, fight if you need to, cuss if you need to, but keep your head to the sky because this will not end you. You're going to keep going. Um, that's what I want to say to these kids.
I love that. I got two things from that. First of all, I remember Earth, Wind, and Fire song, Keep Your Head
Mm.
to the Sky. Cussing, I don't know about that, LL Cool C. However, I agree with everything that you said, and kids are the future. They
Mm-hmm.
are the ones that are going to be taking care of us because we are not as young as you think. I know I look very, very young, but I'm not. And so, you're so compassionate and you love the kids, and I appreciate that from you. Doug Price and Willie Carver had the best signs of the week. So put yours in there. Let us know what yours are looking like. We want to see. Okay, we want to see. And while you're doing that, I'm going to put up right now our man on the scene, Mr. Doug Price. And you know that he's thorough and he's going to come with the juice. And when I say the juice, I'm talking about he has thoroughly researched everything that he gives us. So I always enjoy listening to him, and I know you will too. I know you got the news of the week, and Mr. Dougie Fresh, tell us what's going on with the Stop the Senate Bill 150 rally recap.
Sure, Kimberly. I certainly hope I can live up to those really nice words that you gave me. I did want to say something about what Willie said about crying. Over the last, I don't know, week or so, there have been times where I have cried in joy and I have cried because I was just so upset. Today at the rally, there was one time where I teared up, but it was happy because of the people who were there, the teens. This discussion I'm titling "The Good, the Bad, the Ugly." The good, the teen rally was amazing, and Progress Kentucky was there. We had several representatives there. Willie was there, Annabel was there, um, and the organizers did an amazing job right down to preparing what ifs someone attempted to disrupt our rally. I hadn't even thought about that. There could have been bad actors to come in to try to cause problems. If that happened, the adults were to surround the children to protect them, even though the adults in the handmaidenish Republican-controlled Senate and House were acting like children. I'm not good at estimating crowd size, but I would think 400 to 500 would be close to accurate.
Mm-hmm.
At the very end, something happened, and I think there was a guy who was filming people, and several of the ralliers were holding up placards and chasing him away. I almost got involved in that fray. If I'd have realized what was going on, I might have gotten up and helped him chase the guy. The energy in the crowd was amazing. As first we heard from several legislators, followed by young adults, and then we had a series of 13 to 17-year-old students from Louisville and other school systems. All were very well spoken and made me proud for them and for their parents. They were very passionate people all around. And I have to say this, our oldest grandson was there with a group from Center, so I got to spend some time with him. And I tried not to embarrass him too much, but I know that I did. The bad, Senate Bill 150. Did I have hope that we could stop this runaway train? Actually, I did, but this was not to be. Our efforts may have helped Senator Danny Carroll and Senator Robin Webb to vote no, along with all of the Senate Democrats when it came to the vote to override or not override the veto. My representative told me in person over breakfast, we were sitting at the same table, that he would pass on the vote, but got upset when protesters made noise in the gallery. Apparently that changed his mind and made him vote yes on the override. I had choice words for him, and I don't expect that we will be talking for a long time, if ever. The ugly. Prior to the start of the debate on the override, the president of the Senate ruled that each side would only have 10 minutes to give their side of the story related to the bill. Senator David Gibbons was chosen to provide the Republican description of the bill. Gibbons made absolutely no mention that the bill takes away parental rights from parents and gives those rights to the Republican-controlled party. The Republicans are concerned about the rights of the minorities, and parents should be involved in their child's education, in particular sex education and books being provided. They're concerned about dangers to the children if they have to use a restroom where members of the opposite sex may be in the same bathroom and/or locker room. And his discussion centered around parental rights related to that issue, that they wouldn't have to be in a shower or a restroom with a child of the opposite sex. If you were listening to his description, you would think, well, that makes sense. But there was no mention about the health of a child related to trans issues, including medical care as approved by parents and the possibility of suicides. Senate Bill 150 basically takes away the rights of parents to provide medical decisions related to transgender issues. Some legislators made the comment about sex change operations being done in the Commonwealth, and several Democratic legislators asserted this was not factual, along with noting that during hearing, the Republican side brought forth virtually no one in state to testify. No medical field people from Kentucky, hospitals, etc. Senator Titchener brought up the discredited other country studies and indicated that the Democrats are only doing this to create a cash cow for health providers. That's the only reason they care about trans, because they want to help hospitals and medical providers. People, so much hatred, so much misinformation. Oh, and I believe I heard her say a mild curse word, which I expect is a bad decorum no-no. Senator Thayer may have made mention of this after the debate on Senate Bill 150 was over and done. I want to talk a little bit now about our caravan. I think our caravan got a mention by Senator Amanda Mays Bledsoe, who asserted that protesters came to her house with news media. Don't think that happened. Our caravan, we had 8 to 10 cars, and we visited Senator Dr. Douglas's office. Then we went to Mays Bledsoe's house and ended up at Senator Carpenter's house, or office, in Berea. We had the media at the first and last stop. Several television stations reported on the caravan, and we had some really good airtime. We were able to air what we were concerned about and that sort of thing. But there was no media at a senator's house. Although Aaron and I were there to have a civil discussion. We just wanted to meet with her and tell her what we thought about Senate Bill 50. And we got as far as being on the front door stoop where an angry ring was telling us, there is no one at home. Leave right now. So we left. Lastly, during the House vote, there were several protesters chanting in the House gallery who ultimately were arrested. From the Courier-Journal, more than a dozen people were arrested Wednesday afternoon at the Kentucky Capitol in Frankfort while protesting against Senate Bill 150 as legislators moved to override Governor Andy Beshear's veto of the sweeping anti-trans legislation. Democratic legislators who were with the arrested protesters as police held them in a tunnel leading out of the Capitol said 15 to 20 people were arrested. And Nima Kulkarni said she was told they were being taken to the State Police Academy in Frankfort for processing. A state police spokesman did not immediately respond to an email seeking information on the charges. According to Laura Leigh Goins, a spokeswoman for House Speaker David Osborne, the Kentucky State Police made the decision to remove the protesters from the House gallery and arrest them. guess I'm lucky that I wasn't there because I could very well not be here tonight and trying to explain things to my wife. That's my report on things that happened today at the Capitol, and I'll turn it back to you guys.
Thank you so much, Doug. I told you guys he was thorough. He was thorough. He is our man on the scene, and he was there at this occasion today. You know what makes me very, very sad about all of it, and I want to make sure that we bring in LL Cool C, Willie Carver, on this discussion as well. So, is there any kind of way we can do all three of us on the screen at the same time? And shout out to our wonderful producer. I call him affectionately Nate Dogg. If you notice, I got all of these names from the legends in the hip hop game. Okay, that's how I named them though. And I will tell you this, that it's very, very heartbreaking, but I'm so glad that you started it on a good note. It was so many people there. I've seen pictures. Annabel says, you know what? It was like 500 plus there. I'm going to tell you, you guys were there. Even Annabelle was there, our wonderful young lady of Progress, Kentucky. That's normally our producer on the show. Very, very sharp young lady, very brilliant young lady. And she said it was 500 plus. But guess what? Those pictures look to me. Now, I didn't take a pencil, and just start counting, but it looked like it might have been about 700 folks there. I'm just being honest with you guys. It really did. And also, I'm a little jealous because Annabelle said that she had the opportunity to meet um, the 2000, was it 2021 Kentucky Team of
22.
the Year?
Yeah, that
2022.
21 guy might have been there too. I don't know. I didn't see him.
Uh, well, she had that opportunity to meet him in
Yes,
person, and I'm really kind of jealous about that. But that's a story for another day. But getting to the real meat and potatoes of it, um,
but
I'm just gonna give you what I think. Honestly, and you guys may not approve, but I do know it's very important to state your case and stand by it. I believe in my heart that when it comes to things that people don't quite understand or they don't want to make that change, that there is so much opposition about it. But as it becomes more familiar to people, there still is that struggle. The civil rights movement was, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and we're still struggling with that.
mhm.
Uh, you know, Homosexuality was a no-no in the 80s and the 90s. When the AIDS epidemic came out, it was a hate train towards our gay men in the United States and abroad. Uh, a gay couple being married, what? You could not have even imagined that in 1992 or 1993. So we do progress and we have to fight to keep those progressions. And I believe in my heart today that if we continue to stand up for these children, stand up for those that don't have their own voices, stand up for those that actually don't have that power, I believe that we will get everything that we want, but we also have to be prepared to continue to struggle. I don't know how long it's going to take to keep it. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And I think about Russell Coleman. He's running for Attorney General on the GOP side, and I tell you, if that man gets elected, you best believe it's going to be a mass exodus out of this state. A mass exodus. He's not down with the LGBTQIA plus community. He ain't down with the black community. He ain't down for kids. He ain't down for nothing. So I want you all to just remember that and tell all your friends about that Russell Coleman. So what are you thinking, Willie? What are your thoughts about
I
everything?
do think you touched on something about people not understanding. And I taught a unit on gender for 10 years. And let's be honest, the teenagers are way smarter than the adults these days. They're more informed, they're more aware of things. And I saw them come into those that unit unaware of the basics of the difference between gender and sex, for example. So I'm willing to believe that there are a lot of people in Kentucky who don't understand, right? What I'm not willing to believe is that these legislators don't understand, right? And that's what they're taking advantage of. And that's what makes me so furious, um, because it's really easiest to scare people when those people don't understand what's happening, right? And when we look at the history of any sort of struggle for civil rights, that's what we see, right? When we go back to the 1960s and the civil rights era, right? When we look at Martin Luther King Jr., who was wildly unpopular during his time period because there was this constant attack that he was somehow going to be violent, right? They played on white suburban fears. And prejudice. And so, when we jump forward to the 80s and the 90s, we saw that same pervasive thing happening with the fears, right? That gay men somehow were going to be child molesters, right? I heard that constantly growing up. There's not a gay man above the age of 30 who did not grow up hearing that constantly. David Sedaris has a great short story about being in a hotel lobby and there being a kid there. And it's just literally him trying to avoid being in any space with this 12-year-old kid. And he keeps saying, it sounds crazy. Am I crazy? But he was so nervous because he knows how the world sort of, he was really showing what the world saw him as. And when we talk about trans people, who have always existed, but who haven't had space to exist in our culture until quite recently, what we're seeing is the same creation of fears. I mean, even after the shooting that none of us have had time to process, we're seeing the creation of a brand new fear. And the thing is, if conservatives were concerned about this stuff, why weren't they even talking about it as recently as 6 months ago, right? They're not really concerned about that. And then that gets to the other part of this for me. If you look at the bills and then listen to what they're saying, like, and you brought this up too. It doesn't, or maybe it was Doug. These things don't sound so bad, right? They don't, right? When you look at, I'm trying to think of a good. If you look at the book bans, right? All of these sort of create this idea, like you hear Republicans talk, and they'll say, well, "We don't want pornography in school," right? Great. I would love, because that's what they always say. These bans are banning pornography in school. I would love to have a ban on pornography in school. Every single LGBTQ person I know would love to ban pornography in school. And they could have actually written a bill to ban pornography in school. They didn't do that, right? Instead, they write a bill that makes it almost impossible to have LGBTQ, black or brown books without those books being contested by parents. If you think about the drag queen laws that are being passed, consistently we hear we don't want children to be sexualized. You know what? I don't either. I would love to see someone pass a bill that defined what sexualizing children was and actually protected children from that. Because I know what our culture is like. Our culture is wildly sexualized, and I do think kids need protection from that. But they didn't write that bill. No one wrote that bill. Instead, they wrote a bill about drag queens. They actually could have done something that they're actually talking about. And when we look at the don't say gay and don't say trans aspects of the bills that are being passed now, like Senate Bill 150, when you hear them talk, they say they don't want indoctrination, right? There are so many people going after Education Commissioner Jason Glass, so many people going after Andy Beshear, and they're trying to paint this picture that people are indoctrinating kids. I say, if you were actually concerned about kids being indoctrinated, why not pass an actual bill banning indoctrination, defining indoctrination, teaching teachers what indoctrination was so that teachers knew not to do it and knew how to spot if someone was doing it? But they didn't do that. This is sort of the frustrating part about all of this, is that we consistently see the GOP claiming to do one thing, doing something wildly different, and then writing a bill that is so vague that we don't know how to interpret it. And so the vague bill might look like it's trying to do this, ends up doing this, and it consistently hurts LGBTQ youth. That's kind of where I'm feeling about the GOP right now. And if I were going to make a sign about what I want to say to them, we couldn't publish it.
You, you know, you know, Doug and Willie, I will say this to you. They're so worried when people are so worried about something. If it doesn't affect you, why are you so worried about it? Okay. Um, That's what I'm trying to say to myself.
Mm.
Okay. And if it doesn't, okay, I grew up as a makeup artist, right? When I was 11 years old, you can't get the best teachers unless you get a drag queen to teach you how to do the makeup. Okay.
Hmm.
And from there, it is gravy, baby. It is gravy when it comes to being a makeup artist. I was 11 years old. How did that affect me? It didn't affect me any kind of way,
Hmm.
except for I became an absolute great makeup artist. And I have worked with women and men that were trans. I have worked alongside ever since I was 14 years old with gay men. Okay. My whole entire life. So, oh, the thing I love about a gay man is you get the best of both worlds, honey. They could be your best friend. You could tell them everything. And then they got that male side too, where they could be like, honey, he ain't looking at you like that. You need to move on. Okay. It's the best feeling in the world. And if they took the time to just talk to some of these kids, just talk to some people, being in the LGBTQ plus community, where I forgot LGBTQIA plus community, is not all about sex.
It is the single most frustrating aspect of all of their rhetoric, only because the groomer stuff is so completely asinine that I can't let that touch me. And I know that in 5 years, we will be shaming people who are doing stuff like this. And I also know these are the cockroaches of the internet. The only people who say stuff like that are people who have 2 followers and a Russian address, right? But
Not
it's
the
the
Russian
people,
address.
all those bots, but it's the people who will insist that I want to share my sexuality with students, or that LGBTQ people existing want to share their sexuality with students. As if, I don't know, let's say that I put a fake snake in the kitchen and it scares my husband, right? And I want to tell that story to ease some tension in class because you have human beings in front of you and you are a human being, right? There is nothing sexual about that story. There is nothing sexual about me existing, right? Someone was trying to have this conversation just the other day, and I was thinking, he was like, "When have your straight teachers ever have brought their sexuality into class?" And I'm like, "Let's see." My fourth grade teacher, Miss Dameron, who wrote a book, was a storyteller. And so every single day we heard some story about her husband or her kids and her family, and she would relate it to what we were doing.
How
My
about when your teacher was teaching you and she was pregnant?
Yes, there was another one.
We
Uh,
finally did learn the birds and the bees. So,
yep,
hey.
my seventh grade math teacher, Mr. Hanshoe, married Mrs. Hanshoe. I don't know what she was before that, but she was definitely full on pregnant. There's it was but then this idea here I'm just going to be completely blunt. Here's what really is happening, right? When you have people who are so repressed, people who don't think things unless they're told they're allowed to think them, and people who have lots of shame put on them from whatever social circles that they have, those people actually do look at me and think about sex. I know this is true, because it's all they reduce me to. They see me, and those are the impulses that their brain are doing, that they're probably fighting on the inside and feeling guilty because of whatever religious or social hangups are. And when we think about how these people are treating kids, that's what scares me. When I see grown men looking at kids and saying, we don't need this sexual stuff. And I'm like, that is a 13-year-old kid. I heard a 13-year-old kid talk today about not feeling comfortable in his own body and just wanting to feel safe and heard. How do they hear a kid talk about almost dying and think sexuality? How did we get to this place in our country?
True. Dougie Fresh, what do you say?
I
What
don't
say
know.
you?
I, I don't know. There's just so many things. I feel like the Republicans think their base expects them to not like trans kids. And I just, I don't understand that, because there are bound to be Republicans who have trans kids. I mean, it's not a matter of, if you're a Democrat, you can have a trans child only if you're a Democrat. I mean, it's ludicrous. I had a conversation with a legislator, an email conversation with a legislator, a Republican legislator, and I mentioned how proud I was of former Republican Representative Jerry Miller, for testifying at a hearing in support of SB 150 not being passed. And he relayed to them that he had a trans grandchild and he loved that child. And this legislator basically said Jerry Miller can't be a Republican because he says he has a transgender grandchild. I mean, that's just ludicrous. It just doesn't make any sense to me. There's just so much hate out there, and I just can't fathom why all that hate is there.
I I think that a lot of people probably, Willie said something that I want to expound on just for a second. He said you said that they look at you and they're wondering, on the sexual tip. Have you, you're a nice looking guy.
Sure am.
Oh,
But
that wasn't the response I was looking for, but a thank you would have sufficed. However, have you ever thought to yourself that a lot of these people are into self-hatred because they are afraid to come out of the closet?
there's a lot of good research on this. And we might not even say just come out of the closet. I think to some extent it's just come to terms with their feelings, which may not even mean that they're gay, but they've been taught to think. So the best thing that ever happened to me was that I was gay, because all of those horrible things that I was raised to think about myself, they couldn't be true, right? I couldn't reconcile those things to the reality of my being. And so I had to let go of them. And when we talk about suicidality, we're talking about that same discussion, because there are some people who still can't reconcile those things, and that's the way out for them. And that's why this is so dangerous. So I think a lot of those men probably just have some thought or feeling that they don't know how to understand, and they only have the lens of thinking that it's evil. And so what do? They push that onto other people, right? If they can punish me, if they can punish these kids enough, then they don't have to, they've proven themselves as worthy and good, and they don't have to think about the thoughts that they're having. I think that's one part of it. I think the other part is just when you live in communities where you don't interact with someone who is remotely different from you, you see them as that difference rather than seeing them as a person. And I know that you've had that experience as well, where you don't feel that the person sitting beside of you is seeing anything other than one aspect of yourself, right? And the problem is we're seeing them harm kids, but we also saw them harm kids in the 60s, right? We saw them claim. I was actually reading the Herald Leader article about Dr. Glass, and the accusation was that by being supportive of LGBTQ youth, he was bringing politics into the classroom and bringing dangerous rhetoric and things like this. And I'm like, this sounds like it's from the 60s. This sounds like old Southern racist men trying to justify their opposition to schools coming together and using tropes like this. And they don't see
Willie,
it.
no, they don't see it because they don't want to see it. I will say this, and you guys tell me, am I on the right track or am I on the wrong track? I always can talk to Dougie Fresh, he's going to give it to me, 100%. But what I would like to know is this right here. A lot of these people, I think a lot of it starts in the church. A lot of
Mhm.
people are not going to like me saying this, I do profess to be Christian or believing in Jesus, okay? I don't knock anybody else for what they want to believe. That's just how I grew up and what I believe. But they always talk about homosexuality is wrong. Supposedly, it says in the Bible. However, in the church, a couple that's fornicating or the deacon is adulterating seems to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. I remember my grandparents used to say that all the time. So how can you just, you just pick out what you want to pick out and leave the rest? And I'm going to tell you this. I think that 80% of the people out here that are yelling the loudest against these kids having the rights that they need to have for the right to stay married um, in a gay relationship or whatever. Look, people are people. When I look at somebody, I'm not trying to figure out how they have sex. Forget all of that. If you're up there teaching a class, you're teaching a class. What do you do in your bedroom? What's that got to do with any damn thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Doug, if your grandchild wants to change to another gender and they're doing their good school work, they are respectful and kind, what the hell does it matter? I
Yeah.
did do this. I may have talked about this one time. When I used to be an RM for MAC Cosmetics. For those that may not know what MAC Cosmetics is, it's one of the top lines of theatrical makeup. It's always been that way. And you have to be a hell of a makeup artist to work for them, okay? They on the program that we had, if you wanted to transition, they would pay 90%
Mm.
of the bill. You hear me? 90 your operations, your counseling, your medicine, whatever you needed to make that total and full transition. So I called up HR and I asked them, well, I don't want to transition or anything, but I think I need a liposuction and a BBL. Matter of fact, I just think I need a mommy makeover. You know what I'm saying? Can I go to the plastic surgeon and go ahead and make my appointment? They told me no. So I was a little upset, just a little bit. But then when I think about what my brothers and sisters, I don't care what color they are, how old they are, what country they live in, my brothers and sisters that are suffering because they cannot be who they know they are supposed to be. They always say, be your authentic self. But I find that even in the North, Willie,
Mm-hmm.
nobody really wants you to be your authentic self. They want to dictate and control who you need to be. So I thought about that and I said, you know what? I'm not even upset no more because they go through a lot more than what I'm going through with a little bit of a tummy. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So, hey, what do you guys think? What do you think? Do you think that 80% statistics have proven that 80% of the people that yell the loudest about LGBTQIA plus that honestly they really would like to be involved in that mentally, relationally, sexually, and they feel that they cannot come out, so they have self-hatred and they hate you because you're able to be strong enough to be who you want to be. What do y'all think about that?
I will say that all kinds of pastors and preachers back in Eastern Kentucky, whose names I won't mention because I'm a lady, were certainly not putting their actions where their faith is when we were in college 20 years ago. And they would try to come knocking at my door. So I know from experience uh, that, that certainly happens a lot. Um, something that you bring up when you were talking about the costs of medical transitioning and things that I think is just a part of this conversation that never got to be had because they rushed everything so fast is this legislation prevents us from having blockers. And as someone who has taught trans kids, who taught me everything I understand, the irony that I'm supposed to be indoctrinating them, and if anything, they were indoctrinating me, because they were teaching me at least. But I know from having MTF trans kids in my class that puberty was terrifying. Puberty is terrifying because if they, for those particular, and again, not all trans people even position their transness in terms of their body, but some do. And so, and we all want a body that reflects what we want our body to be, just like you were just talking about, right? And male puberty affects our bodies in pretty distinct ways. And so I had a student who was horrified and terrified. And we act like these kids can just walk into a clinic. I found out years later that this kid was getting hormones off the street in God knows what arenas, just to try to stave off the effects of this. But when we talk about this fear that there's surgery and things like this, like blockers were actually something that was preventing surgery. Blockers were actually preventing us from having to think about that and actually giving kids a chance just to be kids and not have to worry about the onset of puberty. And so the irony, and just sadness that we would lose blockers, something that was so rare anyway, already something that they took pains to go through before giving people. It's just sad. It's really sad because they managed to tie this into surgery, and in fact, in my mind, they're kind of the opposites.
I want
Willie, Mr. Doug, go ahead. I know
okay.
you got something good over there.
Mhm.
I just want to say something about churches. I would think every church in Kentucky, in Eastern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, whatever, they should be welcoming to everybody. It shouldn't matter that whether you're a male or a female or a trans or whatever, you're going into God's house supposedly, and I would think that you would welcome anybody who came in the door, whether they're rich or poor or black or white or whatever. But that's not the case. And we have several legislators who are also preachers, or they proudly put on their bios what their faith is and all that. But they don't seemingly practice what they preach, I guess.
That's right. And you know what? We got problems, or should I say challenges, all over the place, but I can't even say challenges anymore. I have to call it out for what it is. We got a lot of problems everywhere, it seems like. And, that's why churches have declined rapidly in attendance since the pandemic. People don't even want to go back. Okay.
Mhm.
Churches are closing up because they got to, look, God loves Allah, whatever you want to call him. Some people say Father, Mother, God, whatever. There is love. It says you could have the gift of prophecy, you could have the gift of whatever, you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have love, you don't have nothing. What do you got? You got nothing. You don't have love. And we have to love people enough to do the right thing. And the other thing that I'm going to end with us on, right, is this right here. 11 o'clock every Sunday is the most segregated time of the week. Just kind of marinate on that. Every Sunday, and you might go to 8 o'clock service, 10 o'clock, 12, 11, but they just always said 11 o'clock in the morning on Sundays is the most segregated time of the week. So that's just some fodder to think about and where we want to go from there. And just because someone says that they believe in something, look, I'm like this: actions speak louder than words. What are you doing? Okay, what are you doing? They should be inviting a lot of these kids to a breakfast, a lunch. Dougie, Dougie Fresh had a representative to tell him, oh, I'm going to vote no. And then because he got mad, going to vote yes. That's how it goes now. He wanted to vote yes from the very beginning. Let's not get that mixed up. They tell us anything we want to hear to get a vote. But I will say this, we're going to do the call to action right now with my good friend who has educated us so much tonight, Mr. LL Cool C, Willie Carver.
And I'll never be Missy Misdemeanors. Yeah, I want to tell a quick little. One of the administrators at my old high school. People are complicated. People are complicated because ultimately this man did such awful things that I left. But I'll give him a moment. We had a trans kid who became the center of community controversy because people can be terrible. And some of the teachers at the school took it upon themselves to have conversations in class, sometimes when this child was in the room, about the sinfulness of being LGBTQ. And so we had to have a teachers meeting at 7 o'clock in the morning, in which basically he had to remind us not to bring our religion into the classroom, and that we should be teaching biology or English or whatever. But then he couldn't stop himself. He had a moment and he said, and I'm just going to stop and say this. My God is big enough to love everyone. And I wonder why yours isn't.
Willie, don't say anything else because then I'm going to have a rebuttal and we'll be over here until 11
So I
o'clock
won't
at
say
night.
nothing
Oh
else.
my
All
God.
right.
Don't say nothing else.
We do not have a specific call to action tonight, but I expect Progress Kentucky will be joining many other allies in an effort to get out the vote. In particular, working to encourage those people who historically do not vote. I live in Montgomery County, where we are majority Democrat in terms of registration, but we haven't seen voting patterns like that in 30 years. We definitely need more people involved in the legislative races because if today is any indication of what the future holds, then we must change the direction. We might even need to just destroy the road and build a new one. We must find the road not taken.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Any last words from you, Mr. Dougie Fresh?
No, I'm just happy to be here and looking forward to the lawsuits that are going to be filed to overturn SB 150.
That's right. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you. Don't let the DOJ come in here because you know that Attorney General Merrick Garland, he's a gangster. He will come up in here and turn it all around. Don't you guys forget who our Attorney General is, okay? He will come back to Kentucky. He is not playing, okay? He's not playing. He's just seeing how everything is kind of playing out, and then he'll come back in town if he needs to. Don't think he won't. He's just that type of man. And he even said, if I got to come back, I'll come back. That's a gangster move to me. What you all think? That's gangster, isn't it? Ooh-wee, I wouldn't want to play with Merrick Garland. But I will say this, that Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State and organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project, the Commonwealth Alliance Voter Engagement, known as CAVE, and we are also proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Hold up, hold up, hold up. Dougie Fresh, you were supposed to do the close.
No, that's just
Oh,
fine.
you didn't say anything. Oh yeah, you
Uh,
just sitting back chilling, didn't say nothing.
you just go right ahead. You just go right ahead. I wasn't sure if you were going to be here or not.
No, I just saw on there, Doug. Okay. He didn't say anything, did he? He was like, yeah, I just let Kim do it. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive civic agenda. Okay. Through civic engagement. Production of this episode this night is by our very, very own Nate Orshan, who I love to call Nate Dogg, and he is so creative. And we still have to do that song about Mitch McConnell. By the time we get that done, Mitch McConnell will be in the grave somewhere. Oh, come on, Nate Dogg. And we just thank him so much for the theme song. And you know what? Go and listen to some of his other works. He is creative. He is a master, okay? You can go to natosongs.com. That's Nato songs.com. And if you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook, do not fret, my pet. Don't worry, you can rewatch our shows and see our source links on Facebook. Our audio podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. The logo and some graphic content was provided by Couchfire Media. More information can be found at Couchfire Media. You know what? It's Wednesday night. Yes, yes, yes. You made it this far. Yeah, you made it through hump day. You worked, what, 3 days now, and you only got 2 to go. You can do it. You can do it. And guess what? Do something nice for somebody. It'll make them feel really good. And guess what? You'll feel even better. So the same bat channel, and time next week. And we'll see you then. Have a great rest of your week.